I ended my 20-year marriage after learning my wife cheated while we dated. Best Reddit. I thought I had the perfect life. Our beautiful colonial home in suburban Boston, two amazing kids in college, and Jessica, my wife of 20 years, who I believed was my soulmate. We met in our senior year at Boston University, fell deeply in love, and built what I thought was an unshakable foundation. But last month, her longtime friend Sarah asked to meet for coffee. What she revealed shattered everything I believed about my marriage. The truth had been hiding in plain sight for 2 decades. Before we continue with my story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. And if this resonates with you, please hit that like and subscribe button. My name is Raymond, and at 42, I never imagined I would be starting over. I grew up in a small town outside of Boston, the son of hardworking parents who taught me that honesty forms the bedrock of any relationship. When I met Jessica in our macroeconomics class at Boston University, I was immediately drawn to her vibrant personality and ambitious nature. She was studying business, while I focused on computer science. Our connection was instant and powerful. After our first date at a small Italian restaurant near campus, I called my mom and told her I had met the woman I was going to marry. Jessica and I became inseparable during our final year of college. We studied together in the library until closing, spent weekends exploring Boston, and made plans for our future. After graduation, I landed a job at a growing tech company, and Jessica secured a position with a marketing firm. We moved into a tiny apartment together and supported each other through the challenges of starting our careers. 2 years later, on a perfect autumn day, I proposed to Jessica on the Boston Common, where we had spent so many afternoons. She cried tears of joy as she said yes, and we celebrated with friends and family that evening. The wedding planning was a whirlwind, but we worked together, compromising and building our communication skills. Our wedding day was everything we had dreamed of, with 200 guests, witnessing our vows to love and cherish each other forever. The early years of our marriage were filled with hard work and growth. We saved diligently for a house, advancing in our careers and building financial stability. When we were 28, Jessica gave birth to our son Michael. 2 years later, our daughter Emma joined our family. Our home was filled with laughter, milestone celebrations, and the everyday joys of family life. I marveled at how Jessica balanced motherhood with her career, eventually becoming marketing director at her company. We had our struggles, like any couple, disagreements about parenting approaches or financial decisions, but we always worked through them together. Jessica and I prided ourselves on our communication and commitment to our relationship. When my friends complained about their marriages, I would silently feel grateful for what Jessica and I had built. We celebrated our 15th anniversary with a trip to Hawaii, renewing our vows on the beach at sunset. I remember thinking then that we were one of the lucky couples who had figured out the secret to lasting love. As the children grew older and more independent, Jessica and I found time to reconnect as a couple. We joined a tennis club, hosted dinner parties with friends, and planned weekend getaways. Our social circle expanded to include other successful couples in our neighborhood and colleagues from work. Among our closest friends were Sarah and her husband Brian, who had known Jessica since their undergraduate days. Looking back, there were subtle signs that something might be amiss. Jessica became increasingly protective of her phone, changing her password and stepping away to take certain calls. When I mentioned these observations, she attributed them to work stress and client confidentiality. I believed her completely, because trust was something I never questioned in our relationship. There were occasional mentions of her college ex-boyfriend Thomas, but nothing that raised any alarms. Jessica would reminisce about their spring break trip to Florida, or mention running into him at an industry conference. I felt secure enough in our marriage that these mentions never bothered me. As our 20th anniversary approached, I began planning a surprise renewal ceremony in Italy, working secretly with a travel agent and reaching out to family members to coordinate. Jessica seemed distracted during this period, often coming home late from work and spending more time on her laptop in the evenings. I attributed this to her recent promotion and increased responsibilities. I never once suspected that the foundation of our marriage was built on quicksand. It was a rainy Tuesday morning when Sarah texted me asking if we could meet for coffee without Jessica. This was unusual as we typically socialized as couples, but I agreed, without hesitation. Sarah had always been a good friend to both of us, godmother to our daughter Emma, and a constant presence at family events and holidays. When I arrived at the coffee shop, Sarah was already seated in a corner booth, nervously fidgeting with her wedding ring. Her expression was grave, and she barely made eye contact as I sat down across from her. After ordering coffee, we engaged in awkward small talk about her children and recent vacation. Then, taking a deep breath, Sarah said words that would change my life forever. "Raymond, there is something I have been keeping from you for years, and I cannot carry this burden any longer. It is about Jessica and her ex-boyfriend Thomas." My heart began racing, but I maintained my composure, assuming this was about some minor indiscretion from the distant past. What Sarah revealed next was far worse than anything I could have imagined. During your senior year, when you and Jessica first started dating, she was still seeing Thomas. It was not just once or twice, Raymond. They were together regularly, all through your dating period, and even during your engagement. I sat in stunned silence as Sarah continued, her voice trembling. She explained that Jessica and Thomas had maintained their physical relationship right up until our wedding. Sarah had witnessed them together multiple times, once at a party just 2 weeks before Jessica and I got married. She had confronted Jessica back then, who swore it was just physical, and begged Sarah not to tell me. "Why are you telling me this now, after 20 years?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Sarah explained that she had carried this secret for 2 decades, believing that Jessica had ended things with Thomas after the wedding. However, at a recent industry conference, she had seen them together in the hotel bar, displaying an intimacy that suggested their relationship had never truly ended. I saw the way they looked at each other, Raymond. The way they touched. It was not a chance encounter between old friends. As if sensing my disbelief, Sarah pulled out her phone and showed me photos she had taken at the conference. There was Jessica, my wife of 20 years, sitting intimately close to a man I recognized from old college photos as Thomas. Their body language was unmistakable, and in one image, they were holding hands under the table. "There is more," Sarah said, her eyes welling with tears. "Last year, when Jessica said she was on that business trip to Chicago, she was actually with Thomas in New York. I know because my sister saw them at a restaurant in Manhattan." My mind raced back through 2 decades of memories, recalibrating everything I thought I knew about my marriage. How many business trips, late nights at the office, or weekend conferences had been covers for Jessica to see Thomas? How much of our life together had been a lie? I thanked Sarah for her honesty, though the words felt hollow. As I drove home, rain pounding against the windshield, I felt as though I was having an out-of-body experience. The beautiful home Jessica and I had built together, the life we had created now, seemed like an elaborate stage set for a play in which I was the only one who did not know the true plot. For days I said nothing to Jessica, observing her through new eyes. I began investigating something I never thought I would do in my marriage. I checked phone records, credit card statements, and email accounts. What I discovered was devastating. There was a Gmail account I had never known about, with years of correspondence between Jessica and Thomas. The emails contained intimate details, plans for their meetings, and discussions about their ongoing relationship. The most painful discovery was an email from 5 years ago, where Jessica told Thomas she wished they could be together openly, but could not bear to hurt me or the children. She wrote about her guilt, but also about her inability to let him go. Reading these words, I felt physically ill, as if someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart. There were discussions about Thomas possibly being Michael's biological father, though later emails confirmed through timing, that this was not the case. Still, the mere suggestion that my son might not have been mine sent me into a tailspin of anguish and rage. As I pieced together the extent of their relationship, I realized that Thomas had been a shadow presence throughout my entire marriage. There were emails from every year of our marriage with no significant gaps. This was not a one-time mistake or a brief reconnection. This was a parallel relationship that had spanned the entirety of my marriage. After a week of silent investigation, I could no longer contain the truth burning inside me. I waited until the children were visiting their grandparents for the weekend, then confronted Jessica in our living room. I placed printed copies of the emails on the coffee table between us, watching as the color drained from her face. "How long has this been going on, Jessica?" I asked, my voice surprisingly calm, despite the storm raging within me. She initially tried to deny everything, claiming the emails were taken out of context, or that Sarah was manipulating me out of jealousy. But as I presented more evidence, the denials crumbled. Jessica broke down, tears streaming down her face, as 20 years of deception came crashing down around us. "It was never supposed to go on this long," she sobbed. "I loved Thomas in college. But I loved you too, Raymond. I could not choose. And then suddenly, we were engaged and building a life together. So, you decided to have both of us?" I asked incredulously. Jessica explained through tears that she had intended to end things with Thomas before our wedding, but could not bring herself to do it. What started as a failure to make a clean break became a 2-decade deception. "It was just physical, Raymond. It never affected how I felt about you or our family." Her words cut deeper than any knife could have. The idea that she could compartmentalize our marriage, that she could claim to love me while systematically betraying me for 20 years, was beyond comprehension. The argument escalated as more truths emerged. Jessica admitted that she had stayed with me partly for financial stability and for the children, but insisted that she truly loved me. "If you loved me, you would not have lied to me every single day for 20 years. I shouted, my composure finally breaking. The most devastating moment came when Jessica revealed that she and Thomas had discussed a future together multiple times over the years. They had never formalized plans, but the possibility had always lingered between them. A backup plan if her marriage to me ever fell apart. Our heated exchange continued late into the night, with painful revelations emerging one after another. Jessica admitted to meeting Thomas during numerous business trips, including destinations I had believed were work-related. There had been countless lies, elaborate covers, and careful deceptions throughout our marriage. At some point, our shouting match became loud enough that neighbors might have heard. I did not care anymore. My entire identity as a husband, the narrative of my adult life, was unraveling before my eyes. When Jessica attempted to minimize her actions by saying that many marriages include infidelity, something inside me snapped. "This is not about one mistake, Jessica. This is about a life built on lies. Every anniversary we celebrated, every time you told me you loved me. Every moment I believed we were building something genuine together. You were living a double life." Jessica's attempts to salvage the situation became increasingly desperate. She promised to cut off all contact with Thomas, suggested marriage counseling, and reminded me of all we would lose if I ended our marriage. But looking at her, I no longer saw the woman I had loved for 20 years. I saw a stranger who had masterfully deceived me while I gave her my complete trust. That night, I packed a suitcase and checked into a hotel. For the first time in 20 years, I slept in a bed without Jessica beside me. The following days were a blur of pain, anger, and confusion. I consulted with one of the top divorce attorneys in Boston, securing my financial assets and gathering evidence of Jessica's infidelity. Though Massachusetts is a no-fault divorce state, the evidence would be important if Jessica contested any aspects of our separation. I also arranged for a discreet paternity test for Michael, not because I doubted he was mine, but because I needed to eliminate any lingering uncertainty. The results confirmed he was indeed my biological son. One small mercy in an otherwise devastating situation. When I returned home, after 5 days away, Jessica had orchestrated a campaign to control the narrative. She had contacted several of our mutual friends, painting me as irrational and claiming I was having a midlife crisis. Some friends called me concerned about my mental state, clearly manipulated by whatever story Jessica had told them. This realization fueled my determination to take control of my life. I scheduled a meeting with Thomas, arranging to encounter him at his regular coffee shop. When I approached his table and introduced myself, the color drained from his face. "I am not here to create a scene," I told him calmly. "I just wanted to see the man who has been sleeping with my wife for the past 20 years. Our conversation was surprisingly civil, given the circumstances. Thomas admitted to the affair, but claimed Jessica had always told him she was unhappy in our marriage, a detail that added another layer of betrayal. Before leaving, I told him they were welcome to each other now, but they would need to build their relationship in the open, without the excitement of deception. The hardest part was telling our children. Michael and Emma were in college, old enough to understand but still young enough to be devastated by the disintegration of their parents' marriage. I insisted on honesty without unnecessary details, explaining that their mother had been involved in a long-term relationship outside our marriage. Jessica was furious that I had told them the truth, but I refused to begin a new chapter of my life with more lies. What surprised me most during this period was the support I received from unexpected quarters. Jessica's parents, upon learning the full truth, expressed their deep disappointment in their daughter and offered me their continued love and support. My in-laws had always treated me like a son, and their loyalty during this crisis was a rare bright spot. The divorce proceedings moved forward methodically. I approached them not with vengeance, but with a determination to protect myself and start anew. Jessica vacillated between hostility and desperate pleas for reconciliation. During one particularly emotional encounter, she begged me to consider our history together. 20 years, Raymond. Are you really going to throw away 20 years because of a mistake? It was not a mistake, Jessica. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or saying something hurtful in a moment of anger. What you did was a deliberate choice made every day for 20 years. 6 months after Sarah's revelation, our divorce was finalized. The terms were fair but favorable to me given the circumstances. Jessica kept the house, but had to buy out my share of the equity. We divided our retirement accounts and other assets equitably. The children, both legal adults, did not require a custody arrangement, though they chose to spend most of their time with me in my new apartment. The first months of my new life were the hardest. At 42, I found myself living alone for the first time since college. The silence in my apartment was sometimes suffocating, and simple tasks like grocery shopping for one person or cooking dinner just for myself felt foreign and sad. There were nights when, despite the betrayal, I missed the comfort and familiarity of having Jessica beside me. I began seeing a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma, working through my anger and grief in weekly sessions. The most difficult emotion to process was not the anger or even the sadness, but the profound sense of foolishness I felt for not having seen the truth. My therapist helped me understand that my trust was not a weakness but a strength, even if Jessica had exploited it. Slowly, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I reconnected with old friends who had drifted away during my marriage, many of whom rallied around me with surprising loyalty. My relationship with Michael and Emma deepened as we navigated this new reality together. They were initially angry with their mother, but with my encouragement maintained their relationship with her while establishing new boundaries. I found solace in activities I had neglected during my marriage. I joined a hiking club, rediscovered my love for playing guitar, and even took a coding class to update my professional skills. My career, which had been steady, but not particularly exciting, took on new importance as I channeled my energy into professional growth. Jessica continued to reach out sometimes, with practical matters related to the children or our former home, but often with thinly veiled attempts to reconnect emotionally. I maintained firm boundaries, engaging only on necessary topics and redirecting personal conversations. She sent gifts on my birthday, suggested meeting for coffee to catch up, and once showed up at my apartment, unannounced, claiming she needed to drop off documents that could have easily been mailed. Dating again after 20 years of marriage was intimidating. The landscape had changed dramatically, with apps and new social norms I barely understood. My first few attempts were awkward and uncomfortable. I felt out of practice and unsure of myself, carrying the weight of betrayal into every new interaction. 8 months after my divorce, I met Katie at a professional conference. She was a software developer who had also experienced a difficult divorce years earlier. Our connection was not the instant chemistry I had felt with Jessica, but something more mature, a gentle recognition of compatibility and shared values. We took things slowly, both cautious about repeating past mistakes. What struck me most about my relationship with Katie was the transparency. After experiencing 2 decades of deception, the simple honesty between us felt revolutionary. We discussed our pasts, openly set clear expectations, and checked in with each other regularly about our feelings and needs. For the first time, I understood that true intimacy comes not from the grand romantic gestures, but from the daily choice to be fully known and to fully know another person. Now, 2 years after discovering Jessica's betrayal, my life looks nothing like I would have imagined. Yet I find myself surprisingly content. Michael graduated college and started his career in Chicago. Emma is in her junior year, studying abroad in Spain this semester. I speak with both of them several times a week, our relationship stronger for having weathered the storm together. Jessica and Thomas attempted a relationship after our divorce, but found that without the secrecy and forbidden nature of their affair, the magic quickly faded. Jessica is dating someone new now, and I genuinely hope she finds happiness. Not for her sake, but because I no longer want to carry the weight of bitterness. Katie and I recently moved in together, a step we took after careful consideration and many honest conversations. Our relationship is not perfect, but it is real. In a way, my marriage never was. We disagree sometimes, we hurt each other's feelings occasionally, but we never hide or deceive. The foundation we are building is solid because it is true. The most profound lesson I learned from the end of my marriage is that self-respect must come before love. For 20 years, I gave Jessica my complete trust, never questioning or doubting her. I believed that was what love meant. Now I understand that while trust is essential, it must be earned continually through actions, not given blindly as a matter of principle. I no longer view the end of my marriage as a failure, but as a necessary conclusion to a story that was never what it seemed. The pain of betrayal has diminished, replaced by gratitude for the truth, however belated it arrived. My children, my new relationship, my rediscovered passions, all exist in a more authentic space than I occupied for 20 years of marriage. If you have ever faced betrayal or found yourself starting over when you least expected it, I hope my story offers some comfort. The courage to end something false is also the courage to begin something true. Life may not always follow the path we envision, but sometimes the unexpected detours lead us to where we truly belong. I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing with someone who might need to hear these words today. Thank you for listening. And remember, it is never too late to choose truth and self-respect over comfortable lies.